Hello, thank you for joining me here on the Instant Classics channel. My name is Nikki, and I am doing today, hopefully, a shorter video than the Batman one that I put out a while ago. I want to talk a little bit today because I just came to the end of what has been published so far of Phillip Kennedy Johnson's tenure on The Incredible Hulk, an amazing book. I just finished reading this issue earlier tonight. I want to talk about something that kind of came out of nowhere for me, which is the kind of love and amazement that I have for what writers have been doing with the Hulk in the modern age. Like I said in my last video, I'm kind of getting back into comics in the past year. Big fan in high school when I was younger, and then it kind of came back into my life in an unexpected way. And when I did get back into reading comics, it was obviously through a lot of like Batman books. I was reading some Spider-Man, some Avengers stuff, but I can't say that the Hulk was ever a character that really interested me. So I didn't have as much of a background with him and gravitation towards him when I got back into reading, because I was never a guy to where I would pick up a Hulk book or be overly interested in what he was doing as part of any team, or if he was playing a villain role or whatever. I had the obvious foundation of, I grew up in the 2000s, so the Planet Hulk movie was a big deal. I definitely played like Hulk games on GameCube and PS2. I also liked the Ang Lee film, I think. I don't think I thought about it that much. I know I saw Incredible Hulk in theaters, but he was never my guy the way that characters like Green Lantern were when I was younger. So when I got back into reading comics, he wasn't the first thing that I was really interested in. I definitely was doing more DC than Marvel at the start. Now I would say I prefer Marvel comics, just personally, as far as what I'm going to be reading week to week, or if I'm sitting down to, spend a night reading a run, catching up on some stuff that I missed out on, or going over the classics. I would do something like X-Men, I would do any kind of Marvel book, usually before DC. That's not a full thing, but I just really love the world. I love the universe. I love the players in it, and I think a lot of the times, in the modern age at least, a lot of the really solid creative teams, some of the best writers are working there. Not to say anything again about DC Comics. I love everything that's happening with the Absolute line. I think Batman Dark Patterns is the book of the year. And I am a Batman guy kind of first and foremost. But I get back into reading comics, and I have friends telling me, and I'm seeing online a lot, that this book, The Immortal Hulk, is something that I need to give my immediate attention. I've got my omnibus up here. It's actually the first Omni that I bought for myself when I got back to reading comics, and it struck me in a way that I couldn't really have anticipated. And all of this comes from my own ignorance, As someone who, like I said, only really had exposure with that 2000 stuff, I didn't know what to expect. But I was going through some life stuff at the time, as you do, as we all do, and I had people being like, yo, this Immortal Hulk thing kind of deals a lot with the stuff that you say that you're going through. I think it would be something that you could read and reflect on. So I read The Immortal Hulk. Here's 49. And when I put this book down and got to the end of the Omni, I could tell immediately. I was like, oh, this is something that's just part of my DNA now. This is something that is going to show itself over and over again in my thoughts, in any work that I do, writing, filmmaking, anything like that. Immortal Hulk is going to have a very strong place in it. After that, I read Hulk by Cates and Ryan Ottley, by Donny Cates and Ryan Ottley. I believe this book was being written by Mr. Cates when he suffered his accident that has taken him away from writing comics. So this is kind of an unfinished... To me, this is like the great what-if story of Marvel Comics. I know that there are divisive opinions on the quality of this run and of the concept of Starship Hulk, which I'm going to get into, but having this team of Donny Cates, who I think does a better job of writing big cosmic kind of galaxy universe spanning events, and the artwork of Ryan Ottley. Many of you will know from his work on Invincible, which this looks like an Invincible book. It's actually really cool, and that's a big cosmic series. I think that they hit on something really fascinating here. And what we have in these 14 issues, the last 4 of which I believe were penned by Mr. Ottley, and 2 of which are a crossover as part of a 4-part thing that Cates was working on in his Thor run at the same time. I think it's one of the great what ifs. Like, what if we saw this thing to its conclusion? What would the landscape look like right now? It veers really strongly away from what I'll talk about with Immortal Hulk, is this body horror, gothic, kind of philosophical nightmare of a run, right? That deals very heavily with religion, that deals with depression, with dread, with a feeling of being trapped, of being on the run. It goes from, what that was in Immortal Hulk and veers away into this big space bombast bloodbath, which I really love. And then now, the run that we're in the midst of, I believe I read that this is going to run 35 issues. I hope it goes a lot longer. This feels like kind of the direct follow-up to Immortal Hulk that I think a lot of people would have expected, if not for Cates taking over the book. And this one does really lean into Southern Gothic body horror. So let's talk about these a little bit. Immortal Hulk, if you haven't read it, first of all, I'll say anyone getting into comics, I would maybe recommend this as a starting point. I've had this conversation with a few friends that it's maybe the closest that comics, at least big 2 publishing like superhero comics, have gotten to literature in a long, long, long time. I think that this is a story that you can look at and break down the themes, the language used, the structure in the same way that you would a great epic novel, that you would a great play or series of plays. It's this kind of unwieldy thing at 50 issues and a lot of annuals and tie-ins. While this was being written, Donny Cates was kind of running with what was happening in Marvel's overarching narrative, right? A lot of it was dealing with his tenure on Venom and everything that was happening with Null, with Carnage in the lead up to King in Black. And there are moments where Immortal Hulk kind of deals with things happening in the larger Marvel ecosystem, but those are few and far between. I think a lot of great runs, and a lot of comic fans will agree with me when I say this, have moments where they're marred by having to kind of play by whatever is happening in the larger universe, right? If there's some event going on, like this is a moment in Donny Cates' own Venom where it takes 3 issues having to deal with the events of War of the Realms, which was an event that was happening spearheaded by Jason Aaron's tenure on Thor. Dog shit F-tier book. Not Jason Aaron's Thor, specifically War of the Realms as an event. And in Cates' Venom, you end up having to spend time away from this really solid world building and character development that's happening to deal with this, like, Norse mythology, 9 realms, 10 realms BS, and it completely takes you away from what's going on. It's really jarring, and this happens in a lot of books. There's a period in like mid-2000s Marvel Comics where you'll be reading a run, it'll be awesome, and then boom, you got to contend with whatever Civil War is doing for like 5 issues. And it's really strange because characters are having to work, creators, authors, writers are having to work the trajectory that they were on into this larger, I'll say the word overarching again, work into this other thing. So it's like you hit the brakes, you're like, okay, next 2-3 issues, we're doing War of the Realms. Immortal Hulk kind of sidesteps that, and 2 of the issues that it has as tie-ins, the King in Black crossover and the Absolute Carnage crossover, I think are actually both pretty phenomenal. The Carnage one in particular, but the writers here, I think that this book was given so much respect and it was such a breakout runaway hit. You know, this was a book that was talked about very favorably as it was being released. I think people were well understanding that they were witnessing like a classic in the making, and a classic it is, even a few years out. That they kind of said, all right, and this is just speculative, right? I think they said, all right, you keep doing your thing, put a symbiote in there, but keep working on the characters as you've developed them. And there's an issue, again, the absolute carnage issue, where instead of, you know, all of a sudden he's getting venomized and he's fighting eight dudes, you see Hulk in his depowered at the time state, and the whole issue is almost wordless, and he's childlike and naive, and he's just going through New York on Christmas Eve, and it's this quiet contemplative thing. So I think the run, as far as its pacing and structure goes, is unmarred by what was happening in the larger ecosystem, and what you get as a result of that is a bulletproof, you know, 55-ish issues. So what is Immortal Hulk actually about, right? Well, this book deals with cosmic horror, with the horror of the self, with the id. It is laced with different philosophical musings. Each issue will open with a quote, either from like literature, from, you know, horror fiction, from whatever it may be. And each quote kind of sets the feeling for the run. So in this book, you have Bruce Banner, his psyche totally shattered, contending with the fact that there are multiple Hulks inside of him, right? And I think this makes it a little bit difficult to recommend as a starter book, even though I said it, you know, would be a good place for people to jump in just because the quality of it is so much closer to like a piece of literature, to an epic novel, or to a great film than to most superhero comics. I still think it's a little inside baseball. So you're going to see these characters pop up from Hulk's history. Like, you're going to be reading, and Joe Fixit is a character that's going to come up, and you're going to have to understand what that persona is, what that period of the Hulk's writing was right. Why are we now in Las Vegas? Why is the Hulk wearing a suit? Why are people calling him by a different name, right? But I think a simple Google search can help a lot of people get through that, and once you have a basic idea, you can get it. But it is built on understanding of his relationships with himself, with different characters. Anyways, Bruce is contending with the fracturing of his psyche, with these different parts of him kind of taking control when needed. He's someone who is very unsure of himself and kind of what his effect on the world has been. He's on the run for the most part of this book until a turning point where he becomes kind of like a guerrilla style resistance leader. And one of these personas in him, the Devil Hulk, which is kind of what you think of when you think Immortal Hulk, which the name is also in reference to the fact that it's revealed very early on, the Hulk literally cannot die. There is no killing this thing. People try to, and it results in absolute disaster for them. At one point early on in the run, I believe this is issue 7 or 8, the Hulk is vivisected, and all of his different parts, I'm telling you, he's broken down. Hands, biceps, forearms, his head is in a jar, everything put in jars in a room, and he's still alive. His eyes are looking out of the glass, and woe befall the kind of cruel, almost like evil zookeeper type guy that's experimenting on this vivisected Hulk, who's kind of poking and prodding at him, doing experiments. Well, the Hulk is still alive, and one of the jars containing just his hand snaps, and the snap is powerful enough to shatter all the glass in all the jars, and the pieces of the Hulk come together around this research, around the scientist, and the Hulk grows back over him, basically consuming this guy inside of him, and presumably like breaking him down inside. It's very scary, but he can't die. And the persona that we spend most of the time with is the Devil Hulk, who is kind of this being of destruction. He's an avatar of a character in Marvel Comics called the One Below, which is the dark, mirrored side of the one above all, which in Marvel Comics is like the end-all, be-all, higher power god. That could be the person writing the comic book. That could be the person who created the Beyonders and the Celestials. Any of those, you think of like top-tier cosmic Marvel threats, the one above all is the one pulling the strings. But it's a much more... it's an idea more than anything, right? The term is used, Qliphoth, right, as this place below. And it reminds me of the Qliphoth in Berserk, and making me think of Berserk, there's this cut idea from Berserk called the Realm of Ideas, which is this plane where everything abstract exists in, and where there's this kind of like ultimate power untethered by any kind of like physicality or anything that could be conceived of and grasped by mortals in any way, right? This is a place that exists on a layer kind of overlapping but not really accessible to people just living in the world. Unlike the realm of fantasy or the realm of man, it's its own thing. Well, that's kind of the space that the one above all and the one below all occupy in the Immortal Hulk. They are these intangible good and evil, God and Satan, or Satan as God, just acts of destruction and creation in and of themselves. There's this unbelievable chapter of Immortal Hulk that I think about all the time, where they're kind of explaining what the one below all is, and the question is asked, what if God had a Hulk, right? The Hulk in this situation representing the dark side, the lack of control, the rage, the selfishness, the greed, the destruction, all of that. And this Devil Hulk is an avatar of that idea. So he is kind of taking control of Banner in this book more and more. Banner has lost touch with the Savage Hulk, with a Hulk that they call like Kiddo or the Kid, who is the Saturday morning cartoon version of the Hulk that is not really able to put words together. He's unintelligent. He's Hulk smash, right? We see glimpses of deep emotional intelligence from this one, but he's not really on that level. This Devil Hulk is eloquent. He is manipulative. He is conniving. He is Machiavellian in his endeavors, kind of putting things into motion, messing with people, being more cruel openly and gleefully than you would expect from an Avenger, which is something all I'm going to say, there's an issue where Devil Hulk bodies the entirety of the Avengers. This is a squad with Captain Marvel and She-Hulk on it, and he's in a league so incomprehensible to them that it's not even fair. But anyways, you start with him and you have this perception of him as this cruel, end-level threat, right? Not an Avenger, not a hero, not someone that we really want on our side, but something to be afraid of. And that's how a lot of the early book operates. The rules are as follows, right? Banner is in control in the day. Devil Hulk is in control in the night. So Banner's trying to get himself to a safe place before the sun sets, because once he does, it's the Devil Hulk's time. And when that happens, Banner won't know what kind of destruction has been wrought until the sun rises and he wakes back up. So you've got kind of dueling narratives here. Two protagonists. We'll say protagonists because it definitely gets there. Devil Hulk is I don't know if I want to say good dude, but he's someone you could definitely get behind. We've got two protagonists sharing this body, dueling narratives, and Banner's kind of goal is to find a way to outrun this thing and the destruction that it's causing, and Devil Hulk's goal is to end everything. What we find out he kind of means by that, it's a bit more of a righteous cause than we initially think, is, human beings are destroying the planet, we are killing ourselves, we're violent, vicious creatures, right? It almost reminds me in Hunter x Hunter in the Succession War arc, the Succession Contest, how Morena Prudhoe in that is saying, look, I'm just going to bring it all to an end because everything bad that's ever happened to me, that's ever happened to any of us, has been our own doing. That's Devil Hulk's kind of like a Morena Prudhoe type figure. So you've got these two both on their little quests. They meet in the middle. Banner's mind and our cast becomes occupied very quickly in this 50-issue run with a host of other hosts. Different Hulks start taking control of the main body when they're needed, right? You get a lot of time with Joe Fixit, who is kind of a talker here, who's someone who gets them out of sticky situations, who's able to manipulate things with a degree of charisma and how-to-itiveness that the other two don't really have, right? Banner is always on the run. Devil Hulk is always destroying things. Fixit's this guy that can kind of walk the line, right? He's able to pass as a human, but, you know, he's also got the Hulk side of him. And this brings into play a lot of talk about identity, about the nature of one's relationship with their body. There's a very prominent trans character in the book that undergoes a lot of serious changes and mental and moral development. So I think that this commentary on kind of the disconnect between the body that you're in and the body that you kind of see yourself as having, you know, that's not quite hitting on it. I'm not the brightest guy when it comes to these things, but there are a lot of conversations about that, about the mind's relationship to the body and the soul as well. So you get these jumping viewpoints, and there are moments where the book is very quiet, where there's just conversations happening inside Banner's mind between this host of characters that inhabit him. And then you have moments where he's out at the end of the cosmos. There's this incredible annual that sees Hulk as basically Galactus, as the next Galactus. He is the last surviving thing in the universe, and he goes through. He operates almost as like a tuna, right? Where his body grows bigger. He's able to grow bigger to fit whatever size he needs. This is a thing that Galactus does as well. And you see him tearing through entire galaxies, punching them, smashing them, bringing destruction, everything in his path. So you get these grand cosmic tragedies and cataclysms. You also spend time in a couple of little side issues. In the beginning of like Human Time, you see the first person that is kind of the avatar of this one below all type figure of like what the Hulk is, this early gamma thing, and you spend a lot of time with him. It's really fascinating. We get a solid issue where you see that this is a presence, a corrupting presence, and a force that has been around and that has made itself known and that has a precedent beyond Bruce Banner and beyond the Hulk. You also hear very heavily, I'll emphasize this because it's like one of the biggest points of horror in the series, between Bruce and his father, who is a sick, evil, twisted man, the Elder Banner, who kind of occupies a dark space in both his mind and the Hulk's. And he exists as we spend a lot of time in this place, the Qliphoth, which is the realm of the one below all. This is a hellscape where once you go via, you know, death, passing away, anything like that, and end up in this kind of limbo-esque area, you're able to return to life through going through this thing called the Green Door. But some people are trapped down there, right? And Bruce's father is there scheming and trying to get his way out, as is the leader. Anyways, I don't need to go too much into the story of this, but it's worth noting pretty much everything that happens in this book is drenched in this like biblical scale, in dread, in quotables, in ideas. I think there are some runs that you can flip through a mile a minute. I would say that this Cates run, as with most of Cates' stuff, you're going to pick up the run and be finished in a night. Immortal Hulk, I almost say take it issue by issue. There are ideas, there are thoughts, there are perspectives in here that when you read one, you're going to kind of want to sit with it for a while, right? This is closer to a work by Cormac McCarthy than it is Planet Hulk. And I really love it. I really desperately love it. I think the groundwork that is set here and the brilliance of writer Al Ewing's decision to say, we're going to take this thing, we're going to take Hulk as he stands and lean into the horror aspect of the situation, of the monster aspect. This is something that Phillip Kennedy Johnson also heavily relies on, this idea of Hulk as a monster. And all of his threats that he faces in Immortal Hulk are monstrous. They're Goliaths. They're twisted, broken, creaking things. Even, facsimiles like humans, right? Like things that are kind of human but not quite, like Crusher Krill, the absorbing man, ends up having his body twisted and contorted, manipulated, spines sticking out, eyes in a skull going blank. He's begging to be killed, to come back. It's absolutely wonderful. Everyone that comes in his path is kind of met with this really grim fate. It's wonderful. There are other characters I'm not getting to, like the reporter that goes around with them, like Betty Ross, and Hulk's relationship with her, as well as Bruce's relationship with her. It's a really special work. And when I read it, I was like, okay, is Hulk my guy now? Am I a Hulk fan now? Is that what we're doing? Am I reading Hulk? And I finished it knowing kind of, all right, that's that. I don't think another writer is going to be able to do something like this, but we'll see what's going on. Enter Donny Cates, the wonderful Donny Cates. This is a completely different book, and I love it for that. This is a book that sees this concept of Starship Hulk. And basically what's happened here is Bruce Banner has found a way to lock the Hulk away in something of an engine room inside his psyche. And he's turned the Hulk's body into like a flesh Gundam. So almost think like Attack on Titan, like someone inside this bigger, like bio vessel, right? This isn't a like machine. It's not a Gundam, even though he's built kind of metallic overlays and it's all covered in technology. It's very cool. It's very I don't know, it's flashy, it's sci-fi, it's different from what we just got with Immortal Hulk. And he's piloting the Hulk's body from the inside of his psyche like a starship, and then he's got Hulk trapped away one layer lower in this little space that he created, where he basically has this control that he can move from 0 to 10. I don't think we see it go to 10. Maybe once or twice, because there's like this big Titan Hulk that comes out. I didn't really like that part, to be honest. But the conceit of this is he can power up the Hulk that he's controlling by making the Hulk trapped in his mind fight villains from not only their rogues gallery, but also Avengers, cosmic threats like Galactus and Thanos. And depending on where the lever is at, the Hulk will see himself fighting, stronger and stronger threats. And as he gets stronger fighting them in there, the Hulk body that is the starship, rocketing through space, crashing on different worlds, is getting stronger. Now the issue with this is that it puts an extreme strain on the relationship between Banner and the Hulk. Banner has really gone cold and seemingly evil at the beginning. Like the relationship in Immortal Hulk, it's a little bit deeper than that. We see that he just wants to get away on his own terms, right? He's been launched into space before by the Illuminati. He's had to go on the run. He's hurt people. He's like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I'm taking control of this on my own. But he does it in a way that sacrifices the Hulk's sovereignty as an individual. Sacrifices his ability to make choices for himself. And it's kind of it's kind of melancholic to read, because they reach a point of understanding in the Immortal Hulk. And the Hulk that seems to be the one controlled down in this pit is not the Devil Hulk, it's the Kid Hulk that they were really kind of taking care of and looking after near the end of Immortal Hulk, who has this moment of acceptance and realizing that he is just here to do what he does. And God doesn't matter, no one's plans for him matter. What matters is that he's here, he has a purpose, he can do it. It's lovely, honestly. And to see him locked away in this Cates run, you know that it's building towards something, towards some confrontation between these two, but we don't really get that. The run comes to kind of a careening halt at a really unfortunate time, because the world building and setup, Hulk goes to this planet that he had visited, and it speeds along and progresses at a very different time based on, I think, like a different gravitational pull, maybe, or maybe it's something. It's comic book stuff. Basically, He visited this place when it was a fledgling civilization. They saw him, they idolize him, they worship him. They, in advanced time, build their whole everything around this idea of Hulk, and they are all kind of Hulks. They are reject Hulks from all these different kind of experiments gone wrong of a group that he finds earlier in the book trying to make more Hulks that they can harness and use as warriors and weapons. They're all kind of creating themselves in his image. And Cates builds this really interesting civilization on this planet. I'm gonna take a quick hit of a little Dr. Pepper. Hold up. Cates builds this fascinating culture that really feels alive. It's got its own political system, it's got its own rules, morals, ethics, system of values based a lot on who's the strongest, as you would expect. And they've even got the sport that they play. I think it's called like World Ball or something like that, where it's got its own rules. If you've ever played Final Fantasy X, it's like a blitzball type, like intricate and important to this world. But they take dead worlds, get to their core, hyper compress them, make these insanely dense giant balls that they're like carrying on their backs and trying to get into the other team's goal. And you can be full out brawling, you can kill your opponent, you can do whatever, you're just trying to make that goal, right? And the really interesting thing is it spends a good 2 issues on this game that they're playing. And it makes me think that if the run had been able to continue like it was, if whatever circumstance that, made it to where this had to end prematurely hadn't happened, I don't think we were using 2 issues to cover like a made-up sport just because. I think that there were probably grand plans with this culture, with this civilization, and we were getting a full image of them before we dove into what was probably going to be like a 10, 12 issue storyline. That didn't happen, but I think there's honestly a great joy in reading it and thinking and letting your mind wander. I've heard a lot of people don't really like this run, that they think it's kind of weird. And I'll say reading it, you can tell that there are things that are being held back. It's nowhere near the level of an Immortal Hulk as far as like a full piece, or even on the level of some of Donny Cates' great runs, right? He's got that full 40-ish issues on Venom to really flesh that out as, compared to these 10. He's got all he needs with like the 5 issues of Cosmic Ghost Rider, because it's clear that that was like a set contained thing. So, Donny Cates is a guy who can work really well with shorter stories, but I think that this one was supposed to be longer. That's really the vibe I get because of the way that we're spending our time. And Ryan Ottley, God bless him, I got to meet him once. He signed an issue of Invincible for me and did me a little sketch when I was probably 14, 15. This is when Invincible was still month to month. We had just hit 100. Long before the days of Amazon Prime original series, right? But he does an amazing job on the art of this book, bringing to life these different cultures, bringing to life this violence, right? There's a part in one of the little combat rooms when Banner is trying to power up the Hulk to fight a certain threat that's coming, where he fights a giant Wolverine, and the gore and the violence that you get to see on display, I would love to find it here, is unreal. It really feels like something out of Invincible. He's ripping off one of Wolverine's claws, putting it in his eye, he's cutting his guts out. It's really wonderful, and I think if we had a full, image of what this was going to be, we would have gotten some of the best comic book violence of the modern age. Here's a page, if I can put it up real quick, just so you can see the kind of thing we're dealing with. And the colors are great, the scale is great. Most of the fights in this, because they're things that are happening not literally, but inside the mind of Banner, inside the mind of Hulk, inside whatever, they're able to get really weird and crazy with what's happening. You've got giant Hulk spiders. Let me find this other page if I can. There's a part where the lever gets pushed up to 9 or 10, somewhere in there, and Hulk is facing off against every great cosmic threat in Marvel. And you just get these what-if fights, these like dream matchups. What if Hulk went up against every single like universe level threat at once. And you get to see that play out time and time and time again. And for that alone, just for the spectacle, I really love this run and I recommend it. Its brevity makes it an easy go, but I would say I don't think it's the best first impression that you get for the Hulk. I'm personally happy that I read Immortal Hulk before I read Hulk by Donny Cates, just because it imbued such a love of the character to where just I want to see this dude do anything at all, right? It's like in wrestling they used to say like Shawn Michaels could wrestle a broomstick and make it, a 5-star match. Well, Hulk, I could watch him fight, a dog walker like the paper boy. But instead of I'll settle for anything, they give you everything. Every big crazy moment of Hulk bombast they get in the first 6 chapters, and then I do think that it was going to take off and be something really different and special. But that being said, I love the book. It's really easy to reread. It's really easy to just find single issues that you like and go back to them. I think it's a good comfort book, good end of the night kind of settling down book. Just an all-arounder. Not quite as, it's not where Immortal Hulk is. Let me not say not quite. It's not at all where Immortal Hulk is. But it's cool on its own. I love it. It's another page in this, saga of modern Hulk and what he's becoming, and these risks that writers are willing to take with him really go to these wild places. I mean, this is a space opera inside this dude's head, space opera battle royale, following what was a biblical kind of literary giant odyssey that is grounded in that undergrounded. You spend time in hell for a lot of Immortal Hulk, and a lot of time talking and dealing with repercussions and politics and feelings and doubts and all of this. And then Donny Cates comes along and he's like, yeah, that was the shit. You know what else is the shit? Killing everything with a giant green monster called the Hulk. And you're like, it honestly is like you get down and dirty with Immortal Hulk. It feels like a shower, like a warm shower or bath after you just got really dirty, deep in your soul. So I like it. I'd recommend it a lot. Both of these so far. And that brings us here to our third modern Hulk comic that I'm going to tell you why I love. This is one I just got caught up on. Very excited to see where it goes. This is Incredible Hulk by Phillip Kennedy Johnson. So Phillip Kennedy Johnson is a writer that I had no awareness of, no exposure to, and I'm still behind on his work. I have a desperate desire to catch up on it now, because before I picked up this Incredible Hulk book, which I had been seeing coming out for a while, but it was never part of my pull list because I was still getting kind of caught up on the Hulk, and you can only buy so many comics a week, right? This became a must-read for me, not only because of my growing love for the Hulk, but because, good Lord Almighty, Superman's War World Saga by Phillip Kennedy Johnson is one of the best books in modern comics. I think that with Dark Patterns, this is my favorite modern DC run, if I'm, being sensible and taking the feelings that I have for Tom King's work out of the equation, because I think that his catalog is a Mount Rushmore of itself. I think everything that Tom King has done has been pretty brilliant. I'm a devotee, I'm not afraid to say it. But this War World book, oh man, I had heard good things. I read it, I sat and went through the whole thing in a night, and it just knocked me on my ass. I'm going to make a video about this probably later this week, next week, sometime very soon, because I've got a lot to say about this. But I read War World and I was like, you're telling me they gave this guy the Hulk? That's what we're doing? Yeah. So basically, Incredible Hulk, written by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, is exactly what you would want from a follow-up to Immortal Hulk. This is a book that goes back to the verbiage, to the ideas, to the mythos established in Immortal Hulk, which for the most part were ignored by Donny Cates, right? And he's able to do so. The device that is bringing characters to and from the place where the One Below All resides in the Immortal Hulk is closed. That would be the green door at the end of Immortal Hulk. Spoilers, excuse me. It doesn't matter. You'll read it. You don't need to know. And the characters and settings and conflicts in that book are resolved ambiguously but cleanly, right? Like ambiguous in a way to where you don't really get the answers that you want, but the feeling that it leaves within you satisfies anything, and you don't want those answers because, excuse me, the whole point is that they're not there. The whole point is that those answers wouldn't do anything for you even if you had them. It's kind of this existentialist perspective of like, we're alive, we're gonna die, fuck it, make your choices. And that's kind of how Immortal Hulk leaves you, and it's very satisfying. So I think Cates was able to get away from that stuff and from the body horror, the kind of like John Carpenter film like style images that you get through a lot of Immortal Hulk. He was able to do his own thing cleanly, but you still do look at the world of Immortal and be like, man, I really liked those concepts. I really liked the monsters in it. I really liked the horror feeling of it. Man, in comes Phillip Kennedy Johnson, and he makes it clear from the foreword of the first issue that what he wants to write about are monsters. Monsters inside of us. Monsters that we can't kind of hold back. Monsters that, you know, could be just some guy you walk past on a street. People have this darkness inside of them as we do inside of us. He makes it clear that this is what he's exploring, and from the jump, the art in here by Nick Klein is absolutely incredible. I think the interiors are better than what Bennett did on Immortal Hulk. I really do. The covers also are amazing. Each of these Incredible Hulk covers I think are collectible and frameable. And I think the interiors, I mean, they're very different from what Otley's doing, and Otley has his own style, and you come to it for that style, and it's familiar, especially if you're a fan of Invincible. But good lord, every page of this is a poster. It's a new wallpaper. I think my wallpaper right now is an Incredible Hulk cover. It's amazing. It's gory. It's, again, very Southern Gothic. You're spending a lot of time in small towns, in backwoods, in rundown churches, and the things that you're fighting are kind of like corrupted, like bayou witches, right? Are werewolves. Man-Thing makes an appearance very early on. Version of the Ghost Rider, like that's living in New Mexico. All of these different things feel smaller in scope, right? We're not dealing with the literal devil. The green door has been closed, so other sinister powers have worked their way in that were being held back by kind of the mandate of the One Below All. And I think this smaller scale really works for its favor. It goes from being kind of like this massive like dread beast to this almost creature feature. And a lot of the stories in here are wrapped up a lot more quickly. There's this ongoing narrative throughout the whole thing of Hulk and Banner, who are very much at odds, more so than we've ever seen them. Excuse me, my cat is causing chaos. At odds more than we've ever seen them, following Banner's subjugation of the Hulk psyche during the events of Starship Hulk by Donny Cates. Hulk is now saying, alright, you know what? You and me, we're through. I'm taking complete control. I want nothing to do with you. No more talking, no more anything. I'm gonna run this ship. And every time Hulk takes control of Banner, he is able to kind of have more lasting control. And these two are very much at odds with each other. And it's, you know, one of the first times really that you're looking at it and you're like, Hulk is the guy that we want in control, because I saw what Banner did to him and that shit was evil. You know, how he kept his psyche down there in the control room. Or not the control room, the engine room, which is what they call the place that the Hulk is kept in the cage run. So, you've got these two at odds with each other, hating each other, back to being on the run like they were in the Immortal Hulk. And this time they have a third party member, which is a young girl, Charlie, that is with them, who is fleeing after having to kill her abusive father. Now, she's someone who comes from a kind of terrible household. Her father is an abusive drunk. It's revealed to us in about issue 5 or 6 that her younger brother was killed by her father in one of his kind of drunken stupors. He's going at her, physically abusing her, emotionally abusing her, and the son, her brother, becomes kind of collateral in that. And it's really quite tragic. And as a child growing up, she had this deep affinity for superheroes. She loves the Avengers. The whole time that you see her, she's got this backpack that's got a Captain America shield on it that she painted herself. We see inside her bedroom many times. It's covered in superhero memorabilia. So this is a young woman who is strong, who does have this great fortitude, who we immediately respect and empathize with, but she seeks greater strength. And during kind of a chance encounter with the Hulk in the end of issue 1 of this book, with both of them being on the run, she kind of gloms onto him. She latches on and she says, "Hey buddy, wherever you're going, I'm going with you. All right, that's how this is going, and I'm gonna be like you. I'm gonna find the strength that you have." It's later on in the series, after she kind of dies, to be frank, and she's brought back by Banner and Hulk working in unison for the first time in the book to protect this young woman who they both have their own relationships with, which is really interesting. Something I like about all 3 of these books, and this is a Hulk thing overall, but I think modern Hulk, which is the point of this video, let's not get away from it. Modern Hulk writers have done a really good job of having Banner and Hulk exist as co-leads. And I think that the state where Hulk is at, with him being more aware of his emotions, of his desires, of his, advanced sentience, being a little more eloquent than he ever was, less so an Incredible Hulk. This guy is not a yapper the way that Devil Hulk is, and while he has more control and wherewithal than the Engine Room Hulk in the Starship Hulk run, he's able to talk, he's able to think things through, he has desires, wants and needs. He's not he's not manipulative, he's not evil. All he wants is to be left alone. So you miss out on a lot of the great speeches from Immortal Hulk and back and forths, but he and Banner can still go tit for tat with each other. And I really like how writers have kind of put these two off and really defined each of them so clearly and so strongly, to where even when there's no other characters on screen, or on the page, excuse me, you can have this really deep, interesting dynamic. And you can be totally entertained and have your imagination totally held captive by just this relationship between this man and his beast. And it's obvious, right? This is the whole point. This is the Frankensteinian iconography of the character, but it's which one's really the monster, right? They go through this a lot. But I love this back and forth. I love this dynamic. And I like that in P.K. Johnson's run, you are, like I said, empathizing more with Hulk than Banner. So anyway, this young woman is going with them. She gains the power of lycanthropy at a certain point through an encounter with a demon that's in other Marvel comics who's kind of gotten emboldened and become stronger due to the sealing away of the One Below All via the closure of the Green Door at the kind of final chapters of Immortal Hulk. And all of these lesser monsters, more monster of the week, things you might see on the X-Files, right, are able to come out and stake their claim. So we don't have the same scope as Immortal Hulk, where you're having issues, like I said, where he's punching galaxies. You don't have him fighting these giant mind monsters that you see in Donny Cates' run. And there's not really often questions about whether or not the Hulk is going to win or lose. You kind of know he's the Hulk. He's the strongest one there is. But the stakes feel a little more personal, closer to home. He could be saving one person that you've spent a little bit more time talking about, whereas opening incident in the Immortal Hulk is the city is messed up. Donny Cates' Hulk sees whole planets going. In this one, it's a little closer to home, And I think that this really allows the artist to do great stuff with shadow work, with really intricate, smaller structures. There's crypts, mausoleums, the inside of the Sanctorum, excuse me. There's little graveyards in this bayou town that they go to. Cabins and backwoods almost look like something out of Evil Dead. Really cool classic horror stuff in here, monster movie stuff. And it's just wonderful. You know, I'll cut to the chase. It's amazing. I read this run like I did Donny Cates' run pretty much in one sitting. I think I had a couple chapters held over because I read what was available on the Marvel Now app, and then I had to go and pick up these physical issues of it. But it's so readable. It's so fast. It's so snappy. It's so entertaining. All these books are so unbelievably entertaining. And just the interiors here are colorful. They're gory. The creature designs every single time are a hard 10. I think in Immortal Hulk, the body horror is on a different level from like most comics, if not all comics, but it's sparse. And that sparsity does a lot of benefit, because when you see something really messed up, some twisted, contorted form, or a panel of, you know, you seeing what it looks like when Hulk goes back into Banner, and it's this grotesque, melting mishmash of bones and flesh and green. You get a lot more of those in Phillip Kennedy Johnson's Hulk, and it works because that's the tone of the book, right? These aren't moments of violence that punctuate these, you know, long, thoughtful sections of prose, of grander ideas, of contending with mortality, of figuring out right and wrong, of battling the id. This is just a monster movie, man. And it's fucking awesome. It's completely awesome. And he's just doing everything right. I think he got elements of the last two runs in here. He's building on what came before, starting his own kind of dialogue too. We've got a lot of space left to run with it. But it really just speaks to the level of quality that you can expect from a modern Hulk book. And again, I'm not going to say there haven't been amazing Hulk runs in the past. I'm not saying that Pack's work isn't significant, or Byrne's work isn't significant, or any other writers, right? Or that Hulk hasn't been used amazingly in team books. I love him in Hickman's Avengers. I really do. I like the way that Hulks are used in Secret Wars. But, this guy Phillip Kennedy Johnson is doing something special with this, right? This guy Donny Cates is doing something special with this. This guy Ewing is doing something special with this. And you're seeing this character kind of continually put into the hands of these upper echelon writers, of these guys who are kind of industry darlings, who are looked at and people are like, oh, you're the War World guy. Oh, you're the Cosmic Ghost Rider guy. Oh, you're the Venom guy. You're whatever. And they just make magic. They just make magic, and it seems like there's so much creative freedom here to just be compelling genre works. And in a year where Sinners made as much money at the box office as it did, I think people are really into that right now. I know I am. I think, and you certainly get this with Hulk, I like the deep movies, I like the deep comics, I like the really heady stuff. Immortal is as heady as you're ever going to get. But these are also just great genre pieces. And I don't think going into this journey of exploring modern Hulk, I don't think I expected to be given this feast of just pure horror, or pure sci-fi carnage in the Cates run, or pure whatever, right? And that's what it is. Unrestricted, fully itself, fully Hulk. And I gotta say, for each and every one of these three series, strongest possible recommend. Do I think outside of Immortal Hulk that you're going to be able to have the same conversations and thematic grandeur and intricacy that you're going to get with something like my last video, being Tom King's Batman run? No. But do I also think that these are a lot less bullshit than that book is? Yeah, and I'm saying bullshit in a loving way. But King gets very heady. He's very much like, I'm writing a comic book. I'm a comic book guy. We're going to talk about the medium. We're going to reflect on the history of this character. We're going to do X, Y, Z. These books, sometimes you're just watching spectacle, and it's phenomenal. And then you could get some stuff that changes the way you think about or a place in the universe forever. And that's also incredible. but they are just these kind of cool, self-sufficient, self-contained, wonderful books. I love Modern Hulk. I didn't know that that was something I was ever going to feel. This guy has become, besides Batman, maybe my favorite comic book character, at least with where I'm at right now. Maker's up there too. Maker and Reed are both up there for me. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next in Incredible Hulk. Who's going to take this book next, right? Imagine a Dennis Camp run on the Incredible Hulk. Imagine Daniel Warren Johnson taking the reins of a Hulk book. I think these are the kind of conversations we're going to start having. I think that now that these three have cemented kind of what this character can be and where they're allowed to go with it and how malleable of a tool he is and how much you can really just go in and express yourself with color and carnage and craziness. I think that this is going to be a book that authors really make their priority in writing. And I think that the future is very bright for Hulk. As you can tell, I really like talking about him. I've not structured this great. This is a little more freeform maybe than my last one, but I just love the big green guy. I love talking about him. And if you've listened to the video, I'd just like to say thank you for hearing a grown man yap about Hulk for, goodness, nearly an hour. Not as short as I thought it would be. There's the tongue slipping. But yeah, thank you guys. Read these Hulk books. You can find them anywhere on your local comic book stores. You can read them on the Marvel Unlimited app, which is worth every penny. And I'm sure there are places online that you can find them if you don't want to fork out. But all three of these creators, I think, are worth supporting. These books are worth reading. So give them a try. Bring the Hulk into your life. Stay away from any green doors you may see. And yeah, I hope that you guys are in good health and high spirits. Thank you for joining me here on Instant Classics. This has been Why I Love Modern Hulk.